There have been singers who could move a crowd. There have been dancers who could defy gravity. There have been actors who could break your heart, and there have been comedians who could own a room. And then there was Sammy Davis Jr. He was all of them, at the same time, on the same stage. A 5'5", one-eyed black Jewish hurricane of talent who was by any measure the single most versatile entertainer of the 20th century. They called him Mr. Show Business, and he earned that title every single night for 60 years. He was a vaudeville prodigy at the age of 3, a Broadway star, a television pioneer, a movie actor, and a charter member of the coolest club on earth, the Rat Pack. He was a trailblazer who smashed through racial barriers with a smile and a tap dance. In an era of brutal segregation, he became one of the biggest headliners in Las Vegas. Even though the very hotels he sold out refused to let him sleep in their rooms or swim in their pools. He fought for civil rights alongside Martin Luther King Jr. He stared down hatred and bigotry and won. But behind the dazzling smile and the whirlwind energy, there was a man of deep, profound contradictions. A man haunted by a lifetime of racism, crippled by insecurity, and driven by a desperate, all-consuming search for love and acceptance. He was the world's greatest entertainer, a beloved icon who earned hundreds of millions of dollars over his 6-decade career. So why, when he died, was his estate so completely and utterly broke that his children inherited nothing but a massive multi-million-dollar debt to the IRS? This staggering financial mystery is just the beginning of the untold stories of Sammy Davis Jr.'s 4 children. In this video, we will tell the incredible, chaotic, and deeply human stories of Tracey, Mark, Jeff, and Manny, the 4 children of the legendary Sammy Davis Jr., born into a world of dazzling fame, groundbreaking social change, and profound personal turmoil. Each of them had to navigate the complex legacy of a man who was both a beloved icon and a deeply wounded soul. We will explore the life of Tracey Davis, his only biological daughter, who bravely pulled back the curtain on her father's private pain, his deepest fears, and his desperate search for love through her powerful and revealing memoirs. We will look at the lives of his first 2 adopted sons with actress May Britt Mark and Jeff Davis. 2 brothers who grew up in the eye of the storm and chose 2 starkly different paths to cope with their father's larger-than-life shadow. And we will uncover the unique and difficult story of Manny Davis, the son adopted just a year before Sammy's tragic death, who inherited a world-famous name and a mountain of his father's catastrophic, soul-crushing debt. To bring you this complex family saga, we have gone deep into the candid and revealing memoirs written by his daughter Tracey, sifted through decades of explosive interviews, and investigated the complex legal and financial battles that have defined his legacy long after the final curtain fell. This is the story of the family behind the man they called Mr. Show Business. Number 4, Tracey Davis, the daughter who told the truth. She was the daughter of a love that broke barriers and defied convention, a love that was both beautiful and dangerous. Growing up as the biological child of Sammy Davis Jr. and a white Swedish movie star in the heart of the civil rights era meant a life of both immense privilege and constant peril. How did Tracey Davis turn her complicated, painful, and loving inheritance into a courageous mission to reveal the true man behind the myth? Born in 1961, Tracey Davis was the first child and only biological daughter of Sammy Davis Jr. and his second wife, the stunningly beautiful Swedish actress May Britt. Her very existence was a political act. Their interracial marriage in 1960 was deeply controversial. It attracted death threats from the KKK hate mail and cost her father a coveted invitation to perform at President John F. Kennedy's inauguration, a slight from a man he considered a friend. Tracey grew up as a living symbol of a love that dared to challenge the ugliest racial divides in America. Her childhood was a whirlwind of impossible contrasts. She lived in a luxurious Beverly Hills mansion surrounded by the biggest stars in the world. Frank Sinatra was Uncle Frank down. Dean Martin was a regular guest, but she also lived with the constant gnawing absence of her father. He was a man driven by a relentless work ethic, a man who believed that if he stopped moving, if he stopped performing, the world would forget him. He was also a man, as Tracey would later write, haunted by a deep-seated insecurity that kept him constantly on the road. seeking the validation from strangers that he struggled to find within himself. She adored him, but often from a distance, craving the time and attention of a father who belonged to the world. As an adult, Tracey found her own powerful voice, not on the stage, but on the page. She became an accomplished author, and her most important and lasting works were two deeply personal and revealing memoirs about her father, Sammy Davis Jr., My Father, and Sammy Davis Jr., A Personal Journey with My Father. These books were not sanitized, ghost-written Hollywood biographies. They were raw, honest, and unflinching explorations of the complex, wounded man she knew and loved. She wrote with immense affection, but also with painful candor about his lifelong battle with the trauma of racism, the slights, the insults, the segregation he endured even at the peak of his fame. She revealed his deep insecurities about his appearance, his glass eye, his lack of a formal education. She detailed his desperate search for acceptance, his struggles with alcohol and drugs, and the profound, crushing loneliness that haunted him despite his immense fame. Through her writing, Tracey became the primary historian of her father's inner life, the loving guardian of his emotional truth. She explained his often controversial actions, like his infamous hug of President Richard Nixon, not as political statements, but as the actions of a man desperate to be accepted by the establishment that had rejected him for so long. In her later years, she worked tirelessly to preserve his legacy, executive producing a biopic based on her books. Tragically, Tracey Davis passed away suddenly in 2020 at the age of 59. But her work remains the single most important lens through which we can understand the real human story of the brilliant, flawed, and beautiful man behind Mr. Show Business. While Tracey processed her father's complex legacy through writing and analysis, her two adopted brothers, Mark and Jeff, had to find their own very different ways to navigate a childhood spent in the whirlwind of his fame. One by staying close to the legacy, the other by disappearing from it almost completely. Number 2 and 3. Mark and Jeff Davis, the two paths of an adopted son. They were adopted into the very heart of a showbiz storm. Two boys raised as the sons of a global icon during his most famous and turbulent years. But how did Mark and Jeff Davis react to their extraordinary and often chaotic upbringing? One would embrace the legacy, while the other would run from it as fast as he could. Mark Davis was adopted by Sammy and May Britt shortly after his birth in 1960. He grew up alongside Tracey and Jeff in the family's Beverly Hills home. He had a front row seat to the non-stop parade of glamour and chaos that was his father's life. Like his siblings, he experienced the emotional highs of being the son of a beloved star, the gifts that travel, the access to a world few could imagine. And he also experienced the lows, his father's frequent absences, his parents' eventual divorce, and the constant presence of the public eye. As an adult, Mark has remained connected to his father's legacy, choosing a path of public engagement. He has been involved in various projects related to preserving the Sammy Davis Jr. name and brand. He has made public appearances at events honoring his father and has worked at times to help manage the complex estate. He has given interviews over the years, sharing his unique perspective on his childhood and his famous father. Mark chose a life spent in proximity to the legacy he was brought into, a public son of a public father. Jeff Davis, adopted around 1963, chose the opposite path, a profoundly different path. Of all the children raised by Sammy and May Britt, he is by far the most private. After a childhood spent in the inescapable, blinding glare of the spotlight, he made a conscious and absolute decision to retreat from public life entirely. He has not participated in documentaries about his father. He has not given interviews. He has not been a public part of the efforts to manage his father's estate. His story is one of a deliberate and profound withdrawal. It is a powerful, silent testament to the overwhelming and perhaps damaging nature of their upbringing. It represents a personal choice to find peace and normalcy far, far away from the world of celebrity that defined his youth. Jeff's story is powerful, not for what we know, but for the privacy he has so successfully and determinedly managed to protect for his entire adult life. It is in its own way the ultimate act of self-preservation. The children of May Britt each found their own way to cope with the legacy forged in the 60s and 70s. But in the final year of his life, a time of illness and reflection, Sammy Davis Jr. would add one more son to his family, a young boy who would inherit the famous name, but none of the fortune, only a legacy of chaos, confusion, and catastrophic debt. Number 1, Manny Davis, the son who inherited the storm. In 1989, at the height of his late career resurgence, as a beloved elder statesman of entertainment, Sammy Davis Jr. adopted a son. A year later, Sammy was gone, leaving the young boy with a world-famous name and a shocking, almost unbelievable inheritance. This is the strange and difficult story of Manny Davis. Manny Davis was adopted by Sammy and his third and final wife, the dancer Tracey Davis, in 1989. He was just a young boy, and his time with his famous adoptive father was tragically, heartbreakingly short. Sammy Davis Jr. was diagnosed with advanced throat cancer that same year. He passed away in May of 1990, barely a year after Manny had officially joined the family. Manny inherited his father's name, but what he and his mother Tracey truly inherited was a financial catastrophe of epic proportions. The world was stunned to learn that Sammy Davis Jr., a man who had earned an estimated $500 million in his lifetime, had died with virtually no assets and a massive debt to the Internal Revenue Service reported to be as high as $7 million. His legendary, almost pathological generosity, his lavish, non-stop spending, his enormous entourage, and years of poor financial management and tax neglect had left his estate completely and hopelessly insolvent. For Manny and his mother, Tracey, the years following Sammy's death were a grueling, humiliating struggle. The IRS seized most of the remaining assets, including their homes. The family's priceless memorabilia, guitars from Elvis Custom Jackets Awards, were sold off at a public auction to pay down the debt. Tracey fought for years, battling addiction herself to pay off the debt and rehabilitate her late husband's financial legacy. Growing up, Manny's life was defined by this struggle. He was the son of a global icon, but lived with the direct consequences of his father's financial ruin. As an adult, Manny has been at the center of the ongoing and often contentious efforts to manage what is left of the Sammy Davis Jr. estate and control his name and likeness. He has worked as the president of Sammy Davis Jr. Enterprises, Inc., attempting to rebuild the brand and create new revenue streams through licensing deals. This has sometimes put him in conflict with the court-appointed administrators of the estate, leading to messy legal battles over who truly controls the legacy. Manny's story is one of the most unique and challenging of all the children. The last son who barely has a memory of his father, but has spent his entire adult life dealing with the chaotic financial wreckage he left behind. Together, the lives of the Davis children tell a powerful and cautionary story of survival in the face of racism, addiction, and the overwhelming chaos of a singular genius. A truth teller, a public son, a private man, and the heir to a financial storm. Each found their own way to navigate the complex, contradictory legacy of Mr. Show Business. This theme of the children of a trailblazing musical icon, a true giant of the 20th century, is something we've explored before on this channel. In a previous video, we dove into the world of a very different kind of musical legend. David Gilmour, the iconic voice and masterful guitar of the groundbreaking band Pink Floyd. We explored his incredible journey and his role in creating some of the most ambitious and timeless music ever recorded. You can watch that definitive story by clicking the link right here. And his large creative family tells a fascinating story about art, fatherhood, and building a very different kind of dynasty. We are currently developing a deep dive, David Gilmour's 8 Children, the Untold Story. To explore that incredible musical family, be sure to subscribe and have hit that notification bell. You won't want to miss it.